Hi friends, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today we start an incredible series. Recently took this class from my friend John Hearne. Who wins, who loses, and why? Understanding human performance when death is on the line. And yes, that does sound like Vicini, and I'm not positive if that was on purpose. So John, I'm going to let him introduce himself to you, but in a long history of public service as a law enforcement officer and an academic and a student of applied pro-social violence. And this particular class, you can see here, we have slide after slide after slide. There's so much incredible stuff in this class. I recommend you take it. I paid for 2 days of training, and John graciously let me hang a mic on him and record it. Included in that is incredible breakdowns of some of the most significant gunfights from law enforcement history in the United States. So today's part one, listen up, and I hope you get something out of these. Wilderness Tactical has been around for longer than the gun you're carrying has been, and they have been making high quality products for concealed carriers for literally decades. I wear their low pro belt every year. The webbing is the best in the industry, and I won't wear anything else. If you're looking for a good CCW belt, check them out.
The presentation we're here for today is who wins, who loses, and why. Understanding human performance when death is on the line. This used to be called Performance Under Fire, and then I realized that I could work a Princess Bride reference into my title. And the world cannot have too many Princess Bride references as far as I'm concerned. Here's my background real quick. As I've been doing these presentations, I get told that I need to talk about stuff. I don't necessarily like talking about myself that much, but apparently I always get asked questions, so I'm trying to incorporate it into more. So officially, I am still employed by the federal government. I am here on my own time and dime. Nothing here represents the views of the federal government, right? It makes way too much sense, it's way too coherent, and flows kind of well. I'd also point out that this is an incomplete work. I am never gonna have this thing nailed down 100%. I think I'm pretty close, but the issue now is, as the studies and the research relevant to our world comes out, more and more comes out, I'm like, what do I take out to get the new stuff in? If I were to live forever, this would probably be a 5-day lecture. You know, Gary Greco laughs and says it's basically a graduate course as it is right now, but I'm always fine-tuning and tweaking, so it's never quite going to be there. Academically, I have a master's degree in criminal justice. My concentration was in research methods. At the risk of insulting people in 2020, I call it a real master's degree. It was from a regionally accredited university. There were 2 tracks. There was a test track that was a terminal degree, and there was a thesis track, which was your setup to go on to a PhD. I honestly thought at that point in my life I was probably heading toward a PhD, so I've done I have a peer-reviewed, published paper in a serious academic article, and I presented at an academic conference. Yay me. I've been through the Force Science program. I loved going through the Force Science program because it was the biggest batch of confirmation bias I've ever gotten. I tweaked a few things that I picked up in Force Science, but it was incredibly satisfying to be up there in that big program, and pretty much all the references and studies I had already dug out on my own were appearing there, so that was pretty cool as well. I have been speaking and researching since about 2005 as well, so you know, who knows, I might be an overnight success if I keep this up. I'm trying to write more. If you want a written version of this lecture, the closest you can get right now is Ayub's book, Armed Self-Defense, What the Experts Want You to Know. I wrote the first chapter for that. In the interest of full disclosure, I got paid a set amount for that chapter, so I don't get royalties off that book. You're just contributing to Moss's retirement fund and Rolling Rock fund, I guess as the case may be.
He's never retiring, so it's Rolling Rock.
Yeah, it's Rolling Rock. So, you know, I've got a, yeah.
And 3 packs of cigarettes.
Yes, and 3 packs, hey, you got to support the vices. I've been playing around with writing for some people. I've got a article in with Police One. I didn't like the way it had been edited, so I've got to actually sit down and respond to the edits and stuff like that. The other thing that kind of brings me, I think that I bring a different view to this, is I can do the academic side of this, but I've been in law enforcement since 1992. I stopped doing math and tell you how many years that is because the number of years just gets depressing after a certain point. But I've had a gun and a badge for a long time. I actually started a public safety career kind of prior to that. I was born in 1970, and as Jeff Cooper said, the past is a different country. I joined the volunteer fire department when I was 16 years old. The first incident I ever responded to was a car versus concrete truck head-on. I was an EMT when I was 17, and I delivered a baby when I was 17. For the record, as an aside, with no offense to the ladies, that is a hell of a way to see your first vagina in real life, okay? That's all I'm saying, okay? As far as, people are kind of like, well, what do you do? I'm a ranger with the National Park Service. And everybody thinks Yogi Bear and Boo Boo and stuff like that.
You have a hat?
Yeah, and I have a hat that I never wear. So the Park Service has some shining gems of absolute natural beauty where only really nice people go to visit and stuff like that. I have deliberately not worked there. I've been in the Deep South for 21 years, 8 months, and 12 days. I've worked everything that you could possibly imagine. Right now, I supervise a law enforcement operation, 6 employees, 150 miles of road, go through about 11 different municipalities. I've had to describe my job. It's like 80% of it's like a rural deputy or a rural highway patrol job, 10% investigations, 10% game warden. So I've done a little bit of everything from picking up guys in parking lots, which even Craig Douglas admitted was a hell of a way to get into undercover work, right? To doing surveillance on ice cream factories, right? Why would you do surveillance on an ice cream factory? Because they use, in large-scale commercial applications, they use anhydrous ammonia. Guess what everybody likes to make with anhydrous ammonia? Yeah, methamphetamine. So I've done a little bit of everything. To give you an idea, I work a road. So some of you are about to hate me, especially Korea, right? But let's say you're bebopping down the road, wanting to drive in excess of the posted speed limit. And you see that car in front of you, right? Well, it's a maroon car. It's got Mississippi State stickers on the back. It's got a dead tag on it, right? Or it's got like what appears to be a legitimate tag. Those are maybe lights. I don't know what it is. So you hammer down and go on down the road only to see that, right? That's a big part of what I do at my job. It's a lot of traffic work and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, yeah, I'm good, and I'm good at it. No, it is not fair or sporting. He's leaving now, right?
I need coffee if I'm going to put up with this.
I've been blessed to attend a lot of good training. Some of it even came from the government, right? I've been to FLETC for firearms, use of force, their basic tactics and active shooter in class. Like I said, I've been teaching with Tom since '01. I've invented a couple of target designs because I think that targets do a lot for us. I actually gave a couple of designs away to MGM targets the first time because if you're new to this, just seeing somebody produce your stuff is kind of cool. Well, I decided with my next design, I was going to create my own company. And my business model was this. I'm going to build a target that promotes shooting excellence and sell it to law enforcement. Yeah, it didn't work out. It didn't work out quite as well as I thought. I'm also a pretty serious student. I've got over 1,500 hours of training from a bunch of the different places you guys probably also know as well. So one of the few things I'll even point up there is like there's guys up there that aren't even here anymore. The ones obviously like Chuck Taylor's that hasn't been gone for a while. Louis's been gone for a while. And I was very fortunate to get to train with some of those guys while they were still around. So any questions on my background and where this information is coming from, what my views might be? All right. So this is what we're here to talk about. The great question. Who wins, who loses, and why? We've always struggled to understand who wins and loses in personal combat because we see such a wide variety of results. We see horrible losses all the time. We don't have a good solid number, but what's our best guess for the hit rate of American law enforcement in the field? Yeah, 15 to 20% is probably a good number. If 15 to 20% of the shots fired by law enforcement hit their intended targets, what does that tell us? Yeah, they hit their unintended target, right? Most of us have probably seen, I wander, I apologize. Okay.
Wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Most of us have seen the video that shows the murder of Deputy Kyle Dinkler. Georgia deputy stops at a Toyota pickup with the crazy Vietnam veteran who loads an M1 carbine and proceeds to have a gunfight with him. You hear the deputy die on screen. Most of us have seen that video. If you actually go back and look at some of the law enforcement training videos on that, there's like an hour-long presentation on that, and they interviewed his coworkers. One of the things that I found absolutely shocking was that Kyle Dinkler was considered the best shot in his department. Had those guys picked one person to go up against a bad guy, they would have picked Kyle. But that did not turn out well for Kyle for reasons that are very disheartening. If you care about some of these stuff, this is just an aside, I occasionally appear on Lee Weems' podcasts. Myself, Lee, and Eric Gelhaus have been doing a series on significant law enforcement events going back to the 60s with like the reservation murders in Newhall and stuff like that. So if you get bored about some of that stuff, it's probably a good take on some of that information, right? Now, we see this a lot in this country. John's probably seen it more than anybody else. People that survive a gunfight merely because they sucked slightly less than their opponent. right? They were able to get the gun out, get it in the general direction, have it make some noise. They run away, and what are they at that point, though? They're a gunfight survivor, are they not? Okay, but it wasn't like a pretty win. I'll take any one I can get, but we prefer pretty wins. Speaking of pretty wins, we have guys like this. Jim Cirillo, okay? One of the New York Police Department stakeout guy squads. I've never seen the numbers have floated, but he's either killed 17 men or was in 17 gunfights along his way. His first gunfight was his most famous. He's basically doing surveillance in a small grocery store. There's a clerk working there, and they've explained to the clerk, hey, you're probably going to get robbed. When the robbers come in and everything starts to go crazy, just hit the floor and we'll sort everything out. So Cirillo's kind of sitting up in like a crow's nest, like he's sitting up in a hunting stand, and that little manager's desk kind of slightly up here, and he's, sitting there waiting for the bad guys to come in. Not one, not two, but 3 bad guys stroll into the store. He stands up to announce himself, and as he does that, the codpiece in his body armor falls out and clunks loudly on the floor, at which point all 3 bad guys look at him. Okay? The furthest bad guy is about 20 yards away. So he's got 3 bad guys, a legit no-shoot, and they're about to start moving. Okay? Does the clerk hit the floor and make the problem easier? Absolutely not. So at the end of that exchange, Cirillo has killed one of those and seriously wounded the other 2. That was his first gunfight. Okay? That's a pretty impressive win. Now, the fact that he was a national level PPC champion, did that probably help him get there? I would offer so. You also had this crew of guys that came from LAPD that went to Gunsight in the early 80s. Larry Mudgett, Scotty Reitz, and John Helms. And I need to say this with the utmost of respect. This is what I've said about this before has gotten misconstrued. These guys did legit work. If you have the number of shootings and the number of bad guys in the grave without any violations of agency policy and without any criminal ramifications, can you do this stuff well? Exceptionally well. When I was trying to do my research on some of these guys, Bulky knows Helms. And I'm like, how many fights did Helms get into? And the response I got back was, John Helms does not discuss the number of shootings he's been in under the basis of his Fifth Amendment rights, because he was looked at really hard by both the U.S. and the California DOJ. He doesn't want to, he doesn't want anybody to know how many people he put into the ground, because as we're finding out, they come back and retroactively prosecute you these days, right? But absolutely amazing work done by these guys. Mudgett got the Medal of Valor twice. Reitz was in 5 shootings in his career, fired 8 rounds. Guess how many he hit with? 8, right? That's pretty good work, right? Then we've got this weird category. I call them surprising wins. In the 80s, what kind of place was El Salvador? It's a shithole. Let's use frank terms. Okay, a lot like Memphis, right? And Jeff Cooper had a student down there by the name of Eduardo Shaheen, I believe is the gentleman's name. And Eduardo was into guns. His family was in the export business. So the communist rebels basically came and visited him and said, you're going to start running guns for us. At which point he said, no. Okay? So a couple of days later, as he's going out to his car, there's not 1, there's not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 bad guys, one of them with a long gun. I can't remember if it was an AK or like a sub gun. And they're going to sort him out for having said no. Now, this is the early 80s. He's got a 1911 with a 7+1 magazine in it, because, we can argue whether reliable 8+1 magazines exist even today. They certainly didn't back then, right? So he's got 8 rounds in the gun. According to all the Instagram pundits, how many times is this guy dead?
About 10.
Several times over. At the end of this exchange, he has killed 5 men, and the last one is getting carted off on a stretcher.
Stop.
That's pretty solid work, right? If you want to get bored, I know this may surprise some of you, but on YouTube there's something other than cat videos, right? A video that's probably worth catching up on is go search for Lance Thomas Justice Files. Lance Thomas was a watch repairman, watch salesman in a part of LA that was going down the tubes. And the whole entire area was experiencing a series of armed robberies in which the shopkeepers were being executed. He gets kind of lucky in his first gunfight, but he says, I survived by luck once again. It's not going to happen again. After he barely makes it, he looks through his file and says, hey, I've got somebody that's an FBI agent. It's one of my clients. Let me go to him and have him teach me something. So he gets up with the FBI agent, starts taking him to the range, takes him to the gym, teaches him how to work out the likely scenarios. And after all that, Thomas is in a total of 4 gunfights and has killed 5 men at the end of this. They've actually got the 911 tape from when he's calling, reporting the armed robbery in progress while he's having his gunfight. And I swear to God, if the man was ordering a pizza, he would not sound any different. It's absolutely amazing to watch. Most of us know about the Rangemaster students. The last time I checked, we've had 67 students in shootings. We haven't ever lost a student. We've got 3 forfeits because they chose to go unarmed that day. But the Rangemaster students aren't people with 1,500 hours of firearms training under their belt. At the original mothership, these might be people that had the 8-hour Tennessee class, plus maybe like a draw from the holster class for another 8 hours. But they've done remarkably well in fights. So this is the problem. How do we reconcile all these different disparate data points? If nobody ever did it, well, we could say, well, this is impossible, this can't be done, right? And obviously, we've got some guys who can train highly trained professionals that can do it really well, and we've kind of got this middle ground. So how do we reconcile this different performance? And that's what we're here to talk about today.